Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today Manufacturing Podcast. With me today are Jeff Franke and Anna Wells. We're the editors of manufacturing.net and Industrial Equipment News, and we each have more than, 10, 20, 30 maybe even now, years of experience covering this manufacturing industry. Not 30 yet. We're getting there. Every week, we cover the three biggest stories in manufacturing and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at in.com with email the podcast in the subject line. We're also live every Thursday, so subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine so you can get a notification and join us every Thursday when we go live. Anna, how you doing this week?
I'm here.
Yeah?
And that is the important part.
I was upset that I missed the all automotive episode of the podcast last week.
Yeah.
It was, I thought it was great. But I really enjoyed the revelation of just like, oh, actually, no, I think every story is automotive.
And again, we're okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, they were good stories, so.
They were all great stories. And then, Jeff, I like how you countered, well, mine is like only half automotive, so it's not a clean sweep. No, but I was sorry to miss it. And thank you, Andy, for filling in. Jeff, how you doing this week?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. It was great to be on the road in Anaheim. I haven't been to a trade show where I truly felt like this is the trade show in a healthy industry. And it's been a while. And that was one of them. So it was refreshing. And well, I have a couple of high points that we'll hit on the show during my final thoughts. But before we jump into our first story this week, we have a word from our new sponsor, Klear. I think a new sponsor. Have they sponsored us before?
They have not.
All right. Our new sponsor. This week's episode is brought to you by fintech pioneer Klear. When demand outpaces the funding needed to sustain growth, manufacturers run into what is known as the, quote, success trap. The success trap is all too common. Enterprises invest heavily to fill orders while waiting weeks for payment. This dynamic can create a deficit in working capital that forces many to make decisions that lead to delivery delays and frustrated customers. So check out this new report, The Success Trap, Why Fast-Growing Manufacturers Fail. Yeah, that's one you want to get on top of. It'll help you learn how manufacturers can avoid these types of barriers in growing their business. There is a link to download this report in the live chat, and there is a link to download the report in the body copy. All right, our first story this week, automotive. Just Stellantis sells half of a $3.7 billion EV battery plant for $100. Stellantis recently took a $26 billion charge due to overestimating EV demand, and now it looks like the automaker is taking a total bath on its LG Energy joint venture. In 2022, the venture was set up to build an EV battery plant in Ontario. Now, Stellantis is selling its 49% stake in the Next Start Energy JV, and doing so on the cheap. According to the Detroit News, Stellantis sold its stake to LG Energy for, like I said, just $100. So far, about $3.7 billion has been invested into the Windsor, Ontario plant, which currently has more than 1,300 workers. At full capacity, it could have about 2,500 employees. Stellantis will now transition from part owner to Next Start customer. Stellantis CEO Antonio Filosa called the sale a, quote, smart strategic step in its global electrification roadmap. Jeff, why is it that we so often see corporations go all in or all out? Wouldn't the smarter play be to like hold on to the stake, kind of see where this EV road's going?
Well, it is interesting because to me, it feels like a now versus later sort of argument. When you look at the short term right now, none of these facilities, and LG has these types of partnerships with a couple of other automakers as well. They work with Honda, they work with Hyundai, they work with GM. GM is actually looking for a similar type of out to what Stellantis just took here. So when you look at all these facilities, they're not profitable yet. And when I say they're not profitable, they got $3.7 billion here from the Canadian government. They are still losing $10 billion on these facilities right now from an operating perspective. So in the short term, if you're not buying a lot of batteries or not sourcing a lot of batteries from these facilities, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Stellantis has a lot of other things to deal with right now. And if they just don't feel like this is a loss they can take, you can see that. However, over the long term, you do wonder because they're still going to continue to buy batteries from this facility, from LG. They're still going to need them in some capacity there. Even though in the U.S., maybe their electric vehicles aren't dominant, they're in a very good place in Europe in terms of number of EV sales there. So you wonder about that. The other thing is LG is shifting a lot of these types of facilities with the fewer number of automotive batteries being needed to these ESS cells, these electrical storage systems, which are used, primarily for backing up, renewable energy sources, things like that, storing different amounts of energy. And right now it's a quick turn. Like basically they're able to store energy that's produced during downtimes for the grid when there's less stress on it, and they like to turn these 2 to 4 hours of energy they're storing in these blocks in days.
Yeah.
However, there's a lot of movement being made in this technology. They're getting up to the ability to store maybe 15 hours of energy for weeks at a time with less degradation.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of promise in these cells as well. So, kind of to your point, you understand why they get out now, but are they missing a bigger opportunity down the road in terms of if this technology, as it will, continues to develop, if they need more EV batteries at some point in time, are they missing out? Are they going to regret this decision somewhere down the line? Time will only tell. I know I'm kind of arguing both sides of it here.
Yeah, that's my job.
You can appreciate where they're at. I think it makes sense for them to get out of this now.
Yeah.
And, they're basically just tapping out. They're not even going through a selling process in any way, shape, or form. They're basically saying, LG, this is your deal. Go for it.
Yeah.
So I think it does make sense now.
Well, and it kind of makes sense because not just Europe, but there's EV demand in Canada. But, Canada just came to that agreement about importing EVs from China. So maybe that doesn't look as lucrative as well right now either. Anna, Stellantis is looking for money kind of everywhere, cutting costs, past, present, and future. And it looks like this could be part of the, cutting costs now and cutting potential costs in the future, just to Jeff's point in terms of how much money they could be spending on a plant like this, trying to make it work.
Yeah. It's hard not to look at it like the bath that it was. It was a tremendous cost to give this up for almost nothing. But, you look at, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think, you have to look at it like what does this plant mean for Stellantis now and in the long term? Obviously, they stand to benefit from this plant's viability. So it's important that it's there, right?
Right.
They need it, albeit less than they did before, but they want it off the books. And I think a lot of automakers determined to become vertically integrated with their battery chain because they were planning to use a ton of batteries. And I think that cost calculation really shifts when you are scaling back the number at which you use.
Yeah.
CEOs of Stellantis, Antonio Filosa, was talking more about how they wanted to leverage this capacity, but really as a strategic supplier. Mm-hmm. They get that there. You wonder about the fine print in terms of this agreement and what LG is agreeing to.
Yeah.
But I do think it also takes some pressure off of Stellantis because we know they did a lot of pivoting lately. They were kind of late to market in North America with pure EVs. We know they just pulled their plug-in lines. They have they have a lot that's changed here. And so for them, maybe they are looking at the long-term outlook and waiting to see if EVs do catch up. But in the battery market, a couple of years in terms of technology can be a big change. Maybe they don't want to be on the hook for that continued development and investment in what batteries are going to look like in 5 years. Mm-hmm. And so I could see also the looking at that critically and trying to decide, do we want to be a battery supplier at this time where we don't have this critical need and a lot is still changing from a technology standpoint? I think it makes sense. But yes, I know looking at it on when you see that $100, you're like, that what? It's kind of mind blowing, but you you get it.
Well,
you know?
So I was trying to wrap my head around that. And so as an investor that owns 49% of this company, that means, when we're talking about it continuously losing money, anytime they need an infusion, they're on the hook for 49% of that, that cash that needs to be on hand. And that $100, I was trying to figure that out too. Cause I'm like, so with that, can you then write off part of that asset's worth as a loss? And you could, depending on how much you had in there. So that could also help them financially as well, depending on how much they've already kind of kicked into this partnership. And the other thing is that it's likely that $100 price point because, this is a $4 billion asset. Who knows how much they each had to finance in order to come up with this 49%. So it's likely that LG is going to assume that debt. And that's why it's that $100, where it's just like, hey, you can have 49% of my debt for just $100. And so it's kind of like, you get that crazy number where it's like, they sold it for $100, but it's like also they'll likely assume whatever debt is outstanding. Mm-hmm. And it's, Stellantis still wants to do business in Canada, right? Like I wasn't as familiar with this, but so they recently closed a factory in Brampton, Ontario. That closed when they moved the Jeep Compass SUV production to the U.S., and that was all tariff related. But then it kind of found itself on the other end of a tariff fight because it's like, no, we're going to move it all to the U.S., and it'll be fine. We'll just ship it to Canada. And Canada's just like, no, we're gonna counter tariff what's coming into Canada. So it's Stellantis is in a hard spot right now, and things are not easy. They recently held this all-staff meeting, and it sounded not dire, but basically they made everyone return to office, 5-day return to office policy, and Filosa essentially told everybody, like, hey, we need to have the mentality of like an AI or software startup. We need everybody like boots on the ground. Everybody's got to be, nose to the grindstone. And it's good because I get that, like, hey, we need everyone working like our life depends on it. Because maybe it does. And the other thing is just how this positions LG Energy. Now they have 4 facilities. They have 2 in Michigan, 1 in Holland and 1 in Lansing, 1 in Arizona and 1 in Ontario. Let's hope. It seems like with that diversification, they're helping themselves out a little bit in terms of what could be available.
Well, those are just their standalones.
Yeah.
They still do have those other JVs, which are similar types of facilities. So it will be interesting to see how LG comes out of all of this. Because like I said, I think GM is trying to do a similar type of thing with their joint venture.
Yeah.
They kind of want out too.
There's like 4 standalones and then like at least 4 more JVs, right? That's a lot of batteries. All right. Our next most popular story this week. Waymo workers in Philippines are helping Stumped driverless cars. Whoever wins the race to the first viable driverless taxi fleet is in for a windfall. Tesla and Waymo appear to be in the lead, but full autonomy, truly full autonomy, remains elusive. Waymo's chief safety officer, Mauricio Peña, recently made a few comments regarding the degree of independence his company's autonomous vehicles really offer. At a congressional hearing held this month, lawmakers grilled Waymo and Tesla execs on the future of autonomous vehicles. During that meeting, Peña was asked about Waymo's use of foreign workers and foreign technology. His response caught many off guard because apparently Waymo is using workers in the Philippines to, quote, fix stumped autonomous vehicles remotely. Well, that's not full autonomy, is it? These workers don't remotely operate the vehicles fully, but rather, quote, provide guidance. And that didn't sit well for Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey, who said, quote, having people overseas influencing American vehicles is a safety issue. Others raised concerns over cybersecurity and offshoring jobs. Markey said, quote, it's one thing when a taxi is replaced by an Uber or a Lyft. It's another thing when the jobs just go completely overseas. Waymo said these safety teams are based both in the U.S. and abroad. There was some clarification after this news kind of broke. These people are licensed drivers and undergo background checks and drug testing. These workers are kind of like phoning a friend, or I guess looking at it like phoning a human. They patch in to the real-time camera to see what's going on. And while they're not grabbing the wheel, they could still be making big decisions. Anna, Waymo just received another $16 billion in cash. I mean, is that going to help them get over the autonomy hump?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Waymo said that they're going to use that money to expand their test fleets in 6 other cities. Mm-hmm. They didn't say anything about moving past their remote operators.
Right? Like, we're going to have more semi-autonomous vehicles out there, and these semi-autonomous robotaxis are going to be everywhere.
Well, so here's the way I see this. This story isn't, for those of us who follow this closely, is not telling us anything that we don't already know about the path to true level 5 autonomous driving, which we know no one is there yet.
Yeah.
But I do think there are many people out there, as they see these gain more space in the public for testing, that are maybe under the impression that they are a bit more advanced than they are.
Yeah.
The futurism report that is referenced in this story emphasizes how autonomous vehicles still rely substantially on human intellect, and that while the agent might not be directly controlling the steering wheel, they still make major decisions on where the vehicle navigates next. I think that's like kind of the crux of this when people are looking at it and they're like, well, wait a second.
Yeah.
I thought that humans were not better drivers than machines.
We're taking the human error out of the equation, I thought.
Yeah, and so I think it reinforces like maybe how little the public knows about this effort, and that's not necessarily Waymo's fault, but it is a product category in which public trust will make or break. We've talked about that before. And I think, to me personally, there's something about this that just feels a little bit creepy and concerning. And there's just like a weird factor to it. Like, think about what people would say if Amazon said, they're using humans in Taiwan to listen to your Alexa commands because you mumble.
They are.
Right. I know. Nobody, but nobody likes that.
No, yeah.
And like no one feels good about that.
Yeah.
And that causes people to reject that technology because they don't feel comfortable with it because it feels shady. Mm-hmm. And so, to me, like just as much about this story was just the fact that lawmakers and the public were so alarmed and concerned and surprised by this news. Mm-hmm. Because to me, it speaks to like, obviously these companies aren't being very transparent.
Yeah.
We still have a lot of work to do on this technology. It is not nearly perfected at this time. And so, and if Waymo's doing it, certainly everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
We know that Tesla uses humans. They rely on humans quite a bit. So I don't know. I just don't feel like we're at the point where we can say like autonomous vehicles, like we have this impetus to use them because they are more safe.
Yeah.
We're just not there.
No, and I understand the common goal, but I don't understand why we need to be so kind of blurry as to where we actually are, right? And I don't know if either of you guys have Alexa in your house or whatever, but the latest update, she's listening longer. That blue light stays on.
You can turn that off.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I was just like, kind of it's an ask and answer sort of relationship that I have with Alexa. And then I continued the conversation with my kids, and then she answered that question. I was like, whoa, we're listening a lot longer. Just a little scary. So, and I think what is the biggest issue that we've had with some of like Tesla's technology is the word autonomous, or using anything that has to do with autonomy, even like autopilot. Like, I mean, at best, do you think a part of the problem, Anna, is that we're calling these robo-taxis? Like, at best, they're like Kobo taxis. These are cobot taxis at best, right?
Kobo taxi.
Well, yeah, because I mean, like,
I don't think anyone's gotten the trademark on that yet.
I mean, you got it right here, right?
He tried. I don't know if you saw that. He tried to trademark robo-taxi, but it was already taken.
Oh, really?
Because they didn't do it until like just now.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Anyway.
No. So, Jeff, when it comes to how unsettling was that for you? And I mean, talk about when it comes to responsibility. I mean, we talked about the issue with, okay, when an autonomous taxi or robo-taxi, well, we'll call it Kobo taxi, makes sense. When there's an accident, in terms of who's responsible, is it the fleet owner? Is it the designer? But like, I mean, what if it is the person steering it from the Philippines?
Well, I guess, I'm sure that can take place. I saw this more as a troubleshooter, not necessarily somebody who's managing every single route and every single passenger.
Yeah, no, but it's like, it's a weird, it doesn't know what to do.
If something's broke, these people step in.
That's exactly what it
try
is.
To fix it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't feel as big brother to me as where you're going with this.
Okay.
And it's not a surprise either.
Yeah.
Like if you're getting into one of these, you would hope there's some sort of human connection to this whole process, that you're not just on an island depending on this robot.
Yeah.
Okay. So all of those things that were sort of blown up with this story, none of it was a surprise.
Yeah.
I think what's really interesting is when you dig into some of the social dynamics of what drives the people's opinions and is what is going to drive their adoption of this technology. So first of all, when you just talk about robotaxis overall, I always smile about, you bring up Alexa and this other stuff. I don't want Alexa in my home. I have no interest in it at all, nor would I ever want to get in one of these vehicles.
Yeah.
No interest. And therefore, I feel fine with whatever they're doing because I'm not allowing that type of access into my personal space and information.
Do whatever you want.
So there's one way to avoid that.
Yeah.
Trust a little bit more mechanical process in your life.
Well,
I mean,
I understand. I understand that. Like, and if I could get something that was a little bit more secure, not as invasive, but still on command, played a series, Spotify playlist inspired by flatulent children's songs, on demand, then I would choose that other option.
There's so many ways I could go with that conversation. I'm just going to stick to the topic of what we're trying to get on here.
I understand.
So the big thing, I always think it's interesting when you look at consumers' opinions on some of these new technologies. So I pulled up some survey numbers from AAA and JD Power. Only 13% of the consumer base right now trusts a self-driving vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay, 13%. 60% have an active fear of riding in a robotaxi. Okay, 53% would refuse a ride in a robotaxi. Now, what's interesting also is when you dig more deeply into these numbers and you look at like my generation or baby boomers, much higher in terms of the not trusting. If you look at my kids' generation and lower, they're all about bringing it on. The part that is also very interesting is these senators brought up, well, you're outsourcing these jobs. This is a big concern. Again, to my generation and baby boomers, that's going to get some attention and cause concern and get people fired up. When you look at how the younger generations view some of that, they're more concerned about AI replacing their jobs than they are outsourcing these positions to other places around the world.
Yeah.
They're much more reticent to be okay with that. Again, what they don't like is AI.
Yeah.
Which is what is driving these vehicles.
Yeah.
So it's sort of an interesting paradox in how it's coming around in terms of how we're going to embrace this once it gets out there. It looks like in these cities where they are operating these robotaxis, they've been embraced. There is a lot of people using them. This company is still operating at like $100 million annual deficit, though. It is way, way, way far from making money. So that's another part of it. Because once they figure out a way to do this safely, which means it'll be more profitable because more people will embrace it, there's also going to be a lot more competition. So what is that going to do in terms of a lot of the costs? Are we going to have more of these vehicles on the road? Are you going to call an Uber and it's going to be a robo-taxi? How all of this plays out will be a bigger part in terms of how quickly it's accepted and embraced by everyone who's going to be using it. And I think that's the bigger story here, I guess, in terms of getting people on board, because of the things that were brought up in this particular article, you're basically, nothing's moved. Some of the generations are like, I'm still not going to use it. I don't care.
Still a
the
hard
younger
pass.
ones are going, well, I understand all that anyway, and I don't care.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's funny because I'm sure you guys remember this, but probably like 10 years ago, people were saying, by the end of the decade, no one's going to own a car anymore because ride sharing has been established and it's like mature and available. And like that didn't even come close to happening.
No.
Because again, to your point, like people's habits are, for many people, their habits are just what they are. They're entrenched and
very hard to break.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I was kind of kidding, but also serious when it comes to, I find joy in doing things on a more mechanical level where it's not talking or voice activated or thought out for me, even if it's just making a list.
Yeah.
As opposed to that, or I don't need all of those things on demand right away.
Yeah.
It's okay to have to work to get there or figure it out yourself.
No, and I think there are varying levels of that for everybody. Talking about losses, Waymo reported $7.51 billion in losses last year.
All right, so I was way short on that.
No, it's, I mean, they're, so it's, I don't know. How high does it have to be a hemorrhage? But,
well, they just got $16 billion, and that's, you talked about the stock price tier too, or the value of the company. It's so ridiculously inflated.
Yeah.
And that's just, the bottom's just going to fall out of that too, because eventually all these other competitors will catch up.
Well, so there was some news that came out this week about Waymo, and also, just a side note, when it comes to remote operators, have you guys ever seen the movie Toys? Where basically like they're training children with video games to fight wars with drones. I totally imagine the same thing where like there's this warehouse of people that are all looking at screens, and basically like they get patched into a Waymo and they're like, where are they at? What country? What city? Like, what are the local laws? Go right. It's got to look crazy. Maybe they're all working from home still. But the news that came out this week is that we've seen these new robo-taxis. They're called the Ojai, and they're now providing driverless rides for Waymo employees and guests in San Francisco and Los Angeles. The Ojai uses Waymo's 6th-generation driverless system, and it's built upon a base model that's actually made by a Chinese automaker, Geely. It's their subsidiary named Zeekr. Waymo, which is owned by Alphabet, if you remember. Just what?
You're just enjoying
stop saying
these lineages
so
of
many
these
names.
companies.
Oh, sorry.
So confused.
I think, maybe it's because we get that comment the most on the site. Like they want to know who owns what, where are they actually based. And because a lot of people, especially with, investment, they want to know if it's foreign direct investment. So Waymo said these new robo-taxis are more cost-effective, can better navigate harsh weather. And I thought that one really jumped out for me because it's a big deal for potential market expansion. They plan to roll out, like you said, Anna, to newer cities and public riders this year. Could you imagine, like, if you were not only responsible for, like, making these things, but you were also the guinea pig? Just like, hey, you can get around anywhere you want on campus or in town, but it's going to be with a new model, and you get better. You got it right? It would just be like, I don't know if that'd be uneasy, or maybe it's prideful. Maybe it gives you pride.
If I'm a college student and I've got a free ride someplace to try something out.
No. This is just for employees, Waymo employees. So the other is that now, and this is the when I thought of you, Jeff, because I thought this is perhaps a thing that may perhaps lead to more things. But Waymo's next-gen 17-megapixel imager, which the company is calling a, quote, breakthrough in automotive and vision technology, allows the system to see around the vehicle, and it uses fewer cameras. So I thought that was particularly important. They have a new in-house algorithms that help improve performance in rain or snow, and the system includes an integrated cleaning system to maintain visibility during rain, slush, sleet, or just, grime, general debris. And I thought that could be huge for all automotive, because the one thing that this time of year really reminds me of how like useless all the cameras on my car, my brand new car are when, because as soon as it's snowing or slushy out, you start getting all those alerts on your dash. Like this sensor's not working, that sensor's not working. You go to back up, you can't see anything out of the camera. But I thought that it was cool that they've built in a way for all of those to kind of self-clean. I thought that was really cool.
You can wipe off that camera.
Not when you're driving.
That you can see.
But I mean, when you're on the interstate and the sensor stopped working.
You use your backup camera on the interstate?
Hey, sometimes. Drastic times. No, but like if you're in the middle of driving and you go to back up, you get out of your car to wipe it off?
No, I just use the mirror, or I turn around.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I forgot the mechanical way.
There are ways around this. We're not locked into all this technology, man.
I know we're not locked into it, but I thought it was cool that if we're going to rely on all these cameras and sensors, it's cool that they can clean themselves off. I do understand that, yes, I can use the box of tissues I have in my car to go and wipe each off individually.
This is not controversial.
I just don't understand how that's like so mind blowing or earth shattering or what was the term that they used? Groundbreaking. That it can clean.
That it can clean. I mean, maybe it's just got a tiny wiper on it. I don't know, but I thought it was cool. Like, I mean, that is, albeit like a first world problem. It's still a problem when you're driving. Not for Jeff.
Okay.
I mean, Anna, doesn't that happen to you where your sensors just stop working in the elements?
I guess here and there, yeah. Sometimes I get snow or dirt on something.
Well, in terms of
she's trying to bail
she's
you
really
out. You should really let this go.
But okay, well, I'm the only person that found this interesting. But
do we have any other stories on the podcast?
Yeah, but after this, no. Well, the other thing is the market potential as well, because you can't go rolling these things out in anywhere that has a lot of snow because they're not going to work unless they have this type of technology, which is groundbreaking in a very small way.
No person to wipe them off.
Thank God.
I'm
don't have
calling
to do
you.
that.
Every time a sensor goes off, I'm gonna be like, Jeff, I need.
What are you talking about? All these sensors going off? What do you drive?
Well, like, so in the van, when I'm driving down the interstate and it's snowing or slush or whatever, like all of a sudden they'll get covered in snow or slush, and then you get these warnings that say like front sensor, front lidar, is just not working or not operable. So then you can't use cruise, you can't use
Really?
Yeah, it won't let you use your cruise. It won't let you use the lane assist. It won't let you use a bunch of other safety
What are you
features.
driving through?
Huh?
What are you driving through?
I go mudding a lot. No,
Mudding.
No, this is just.
I haven't seen any of those.
I wonder if that's like a uniquely Midwestern term, mudding. But no, but like just driving in the snow. Like if it's wet snow, it happens all the time. Anywho, if that does happen to anyone else in the world that listens to this, please reach out to Jeff. Our most popular story this week: Rockwell Automation picks city for new 1 million square foot manufacturing facility. Rockwell Automation in November announced plans for a 1 million square foot manufacturing facility. It could be the company's largest facility anywhere. This week, the company officially picked the site, and it was not a big surprise. During a Q1 earnings call, CEO Blake Moret said the facility will be built in New Berlin, Wisconsin. The company also bought its facility in Mequon, Wisconsin, which it was leasing. The new facility will include manufacturing and warehouse space and will be equipped with advanced automation, robotics, and digital systems. What's nice is that the plant can actually use state-of-the-art Rockwell production technologies like AI and analytics tools to increase efficiency and precision. Jeff, are you surprised that Rockwell, which is based out of Milwaukee, is keeping its new crown jewel so close to home?
I think it would have been bigger news if it was out of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
No, it was not a surprise, but I think like everybody else, when you see the headline, you definitely want to click in and see what they decided. So, I mean, this is great news for the state of Wisconsin, this local area, all of that. It also makes sense for Rockwell. This is a company that still does about 65% of their business in North America. Mm-hmm. So looking to outsource to Europe or Asia, there would be some challenges there as well.
Yeah.
So it does make sense there. This is also a deal they're going to receive a lot of state and local financial support for this facility, which they can use.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of – this company is really growing very strongly. They're looking at 20% growth year over year. A lot of positive things happening for them. So it's cool to see that it's not just staying here in the U.S., but within the state.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I thought it was such a big story because of the company's position as a market leader. I thought a couple of different reports that I looked at saw that they're about 20% of the market when it comes to industrial automation, and that kind of varied depending on what you were looking at specifically. So Anna, looking at what's going on at Rockwell, do you think, is Rockwell one of those brands that just everybody sort of recognizes in the industry, and maybe that's why it's so popular?
It is popular.
No,
yeah.
I mean, like the story was popular. I guess when I looked at this, A, it was good news. Yeah. And B, it was like kind of just like, well, yeah, that makes sense. So there were a couple of times that things about this story where I was just like very surprised that this was the most popular thing on our sites this week.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think people know the Rockwell brand. Like Jeff said, when you tease them with the...
Yeah. Like, where's it gonna go?
Where's it gonna be?
Yeah.
Rockwell Automation picks this city for its new and 1 million square feet too. I mean, that's a huge factory. So
yeah, being familiar with New Berlin, I was like, where's it going?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. So obviously this is part of Rockwell's planned spending of about $2 billion that they want to put out there in the next 5 years. They want to invest in manufacturing, talent, digital infrastructure. They'd already announced that back in August. And as you mentioned, like, interesting that they can leverage their own technologies within this plant. That'll make it a really cool operation for sure. Factory of the future, all of that. But one thing I found that was interesting that I will note is, according to some reports, Rockwell has not actually shared a timeline and has yet to even apply for a specific site or be approved. There is speculation as to where this site would be. They identified like this 100-acre area as where they were speculating where it might be.
Okay.
But there's really no details that have been revealed or confirmed by Rockwell. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel said that no development proposals have yet been submitted to the city for Plan Commission and Common Council review, which I just found interesting. I mean, like, it's strange to me kind of that Rockwell felt prepared to announce this without any of that being decided.
Yeah, without a rendering, you know?
Nothing.
Yeah, plot of land.
And you could take from that maybe just like the long-term track record that they have of trust with the area. As you mentioned, Milwaukee is right down the road. But I worry just a little bit that without a formal proposal here, that there could be conflicts when it comes down to the details there, and that maybe the community loses a little bit of leverage when negotiating those when this project has already been announced.
Yeah.
Because it's such a huge investment.
Yeah.
Then you're in the position as a community to be like, you know, making or breaking the deal with your demands.
Yeah, we got to win the business.
Right. When I just feel like they should have worked out some of these ahead of time. And maybe they have just like a handshake agreement and we just don't know about it. Yeah. Hopefully. But again, still, you'd like to see a little bit more formality behind that.
Well, and there is a strong manufacturing base in this New Berlin area. So it makes sense. But yeah, it's I have family there and I was just like, where is it going to go? Maybe they'll knock down the high school. No.
I think there's some space. There's like some industrial parks, like, you know, kind of when you come in Moreland, I'm getting into the weeds. Exactly I'm getting into the weeds here, but
that's exactly where I was thinking as well. Like, because when you talk about being so close to, I mean, it's like 5 miles away from downtown Milwaukee. Yeah. Like, and yeah, when you kind of get right off the interstate, there's that industrial space. But no, I was just, and I thought I like it when these stories are so close to home. And I also like the idea that like you might not need a showroom because your entire factory is going to be their showroom.
Totally.
There was also news that came out in November about Rockwell working on an integration with NVIDIA. And I just thought that was kind of cool because we always think of Rockwell in terms of being sort of a tech leader. So they're working with this thing called NVIDIA's Nemotron Nano. And that's a purpose-built small language model, or SLM, that's designed to be used on Rockwell's Factory Talk Design Studio and other Rockwell product workflows. That is way more difficult to say than I thought it was going to be. So they want to basically get closer to real-time intelligence for industrial teams kind of all across the board. This thing is built to be used across design, development, production, maintenance workflows. The model operates on HMIs, appliances, desktop, private cloud environments. And I thought it was really cool because it supported both edge and air gap deployments, offering improved reasoning, predictability, and responsiveness compared to other SLMs. That was something that kind of stood out to me because we always talk about a large language model and we don't think of like a small language model, which is like a really smart, basically putting a lot of really smart AI into like basically tiny little, ecosystems. And I thought that was really cool. I thought the idea of like working internally and just being able to ask a question to the machine you're working on and it being able to answer it for you in real time. I thought that was pretty powerful. Kind of cool. All right. Well, before we jump into In Case You Missed It, or I keep arguing about the merits of the Generation 17 imager, or whatever that was called, thermal imager. I'm going to get it. I'm going to win you over, Jeff. The 17 megapixel
I still think it's
imager.
easier to just turn around.
No, because then I won't need my chiropractor anymore. We have another word from our sponsor, Klear. This week's episode is brought to you by fintech pioneer Klear. When demand outpaces the funding needed to sustain growth, manufacturers run into what is known as the, quote, success trap. The success trap is all too common. Enterprises invest heavily to fill orders while waiting weeks for payment. This dynamic can create a deficit in working capital that forces many to make decisions that lead to delivery delays and frustrated customers. So check out this report, The Success Trap, Why Fast-Growing Manufacturers Fail, to learn how manufacturers can avoid these types of barriers in growing their business. All right, in case you missed it, stories that weren't as popular on the site, but could make a big impact on the industry going forward. Anna, what do you have for us this week?
I picked an article about Honda and how Honda is developing an energy-efficient AI chip to help eliminate vehicle crashes. And I had to click on that because I was like, what does any of that mean?
What do you mean? Yeah.
So Honda has announced a joint development with a company called Mythic to develop an energy-efficient AI chip with safety in mind. So Mythic's ultra-efficient analog compute in memory architecture will enable advanced driver assist and autonomous features. So maybe we'll figure this Waymo thing out with this chip. So they say the goal is to boost onboard AI capabilities while minimizing power draw. Honda's got this long-term goal of trying to eliminate fatalities in their vehicles and their motorcycles by 2050. Mythic has said that this compute and memory technology delivers roughly 100 times more AI processing within the same power budget.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Which is incredible, yeah. And it's a system on a chip. They say it's capable of running advanced machine learning. It's going to make Honda's vehicles smarter and safer. This ranges in features from vision transformers for perceptive awareness to physics-informed neural networks for vehicle dynamics and control. So Mythic CTO Dave Fick said, in the near future, the most powerful computer in your home will be parked in your garage. I thought that was a great quote.
Yeah.
He added that vehicles will soon require computing performance on par with data centers, but with far tighter energy budgets. So Honda expects that they will be testing these as soon as decade's end, possibly.
Wow.
I just thought interesting use of AI as a safety feature. I love to see those applications and some details around those. But also to hear about the energy component, we don't hear about that as much. We know that AI is a huge consumer of energy. People have kind of glossed over that. I feel like we have done that at our peril with other technologies over the years, and then we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to solve that problem later.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that consideration was being addressed here, and I'm hoping that maybe some other industry leaders will be open and upfront about making an effort to solve that problem as well.
Well, and that was, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about Generac and the huge market opportunity that came with this new the data centers and how fast they're going up and how many we're going to need. But I guess part of that is, the technology could also shrink, become much more efficient, and maybe we don't need as many. Or because I know they are quite controversial in a lot of the communities that they're going into. And I mean, you talk about people glossing over it, but I think it's also become like a punchline, right? When people post an AI-generated photo of themselves or their family, they're just like, hey, did you dump out the gallon of water that you wasted to create this?
Was it worth it to you?
Was it worth it when you can't breathe or you can't drink? So I think when you're talking about how much more efficient was it, like 100 times more efficient, that's really incredible to me. And to talk about doing it by the end of the decade, that's very powerful stuff. Jeff, when you were looking at this story, what kind of jumped out to you?
I just wonder, and I didn't get a chance to look at this one, but I just wonder if the insurance companies got on board with more of these types of advancements and this type of technology, how much more quickly we could maybe get some of it to market. I mean, they've got a vested interest in producing safer vehicles and having fewer incidents and fewer claims for them to pay off.
Yeah.
You'd like to see more of them get involved in this type of stuff.
I mean, do you think part of the issue there, though, is that there's so much? There's just because there are so many different safety innovations all over a vehicle, all over transportation, that for the insurance industry to get involved with all of them at this early of a stage.
I mean, pick some winners.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fair. Pick the ones you want to go for. But when we're looking at something like this that has so many wins and checks so many boxes, yeah, it would just be nice to see some of these bigger companies get, but they can use more support than. I know Honda's not hurting. Okay,
yeah.
I understand they're in a leading role. They can help out with this stuff too. But hey, if you're progressive, maybe one less Super Bowl commercial and put a little money into this.
Yeah. I think it's a good point because they talk about how increasingly, as vehicles become more complex and the electronics are contained therein, that vehicles total like more easily.
Yeah.
So the insurance cost of that alone,
Oh, yeah.
just crazy. I'm sure that they would appreciate like even just preventing some fender benders in whatever way they could.
Jeff, what's your in case you missed it this week?
Yeah, I picked an article that talked about infusing asphalt with plastic could help roads last longer and resist cracking under heat. So I thought this was a really interesting article. It's actually written by an individual who grew up in Bangladesh. And his antithesis for this whole research project that he's running is his unfortunately lived very closely to a trash facility where they're bringing in all the garbage. And he could see the impacts that it had on people's health, the environment, etc. And as we know, there's been a huge escalation in plastics being dumped into garbage. We only recycle like 10% of all the plastics we use. That number continues to escalate. Last number that we could see and was quoted in the article here is something like 27 million tons of plastics going into landfills per year.
Yeah.
So what he's done is he's developed a process for using melted plastic to help make roads. So basically there's the the thing that holds everything together, sort of the binder, if you will. It's called bitumen. It's used in roads. It's all over the place. It's a petroleum-based product. He replaced about 8 to 10% of that with melted plastic sourced from landfills to make a road. In producing about a mile of road in this test spot in Dallas, they use about 4.5 tons of plastic, okay? So if you start calculating this out in terms of taking it out of the landfills, putting it into roads, which is something we do anyway, there could be just a ton of benefit here. Now, even if we use this almost exclusively, it's a drop in the bucket, but it's helpful. He even looked at degradation and worrying about this being released into the environment as the road breaks down. And really, it's much less impactful even than the rubber that gets off the tires. Comes off the tires. So it was just one of those things where you see a couple of different issues being applied in finding a solution. I thought it was really interesting. He goes into more of the process and the technology in the article. I'd encourage you to check it out. But just to offer another context, and we've talked about this a ton, we have a huge issue with plastics and recycling, whichever side of the road you want to take with that one. But just to offer perspective, 4.5 tons, okay, for 1 mile. David, I know you're the math guy, so just double check my numbers here, please. Okay. We do an average of about 43,000 miles of road construction and replacement per year. So if that's about 4.5 tons per mile, that puts us at about just under 200,000 tons of plastic we could take out of the landfill, which is great, but that's only about 10% of what's going on.
Well, sure. I mean,
But if we can figure out a way to raise that 8 to 10% of that binder to use more of this plastic, that just improves all things around. So I just thought it was a cool article, especially the guy's background, where he comes from, where he came up with the idea. Just a lot of cool stuff here.
No, any of those see a problem, solve a problem. And it's bitumen. And I mean, we talk about it's like this nebulous, we got a plastics problem, we really should do something about it. But 400 million tons of plastic a year globally, we should figure something out to do with that. And 10% of that being recycled. For me, so this reminds me of the first trade show I ever went to when I started working professionally, because I used to work in the airport business industry. And the first time I went to a trade show, I saw all these innovations as to what could go into new techniques when it came to paving runways and paving roads. And I came back into the office and I'm just like, oh my God, this is groundbreaking. It's expanding and contracting. It won't crack. There won't be any potholes. Like, it's going to solve a problem. And then everyone's just like, they're not going to do that. It's way too expensive. I'm like, yeah, but think about a long-term solution. It's going to be beautiful. Like, we'll never have to repair roads because they're self-healing. And they're like, they're never going to do that. Like, because it's way too much upfront cost and they're too short-sighted. And I was just like, that sucks. So I think that was like, oh my God, it's a while ago. But I mean, we're talking like 25 years ago, where people had the answers to some of these infrastructure problems and we're still trying to figure out solutions to them. And it's just, sometimes that gets a little frustrating.
Well, and this one I think does have some promise. They've already done the test run. He's looking at ways they're getting more feedback on. Just like you said, it does help the roads last longer as well. So I think this one may have a little promise to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be just this. We're at that time of year now, where like the size of the potholes are just getting laughable. Where it's like, is this road even passable?
Yeah, like, should I be on this?
Yeah. So when you look at this story, I mean, at least it's something to be optimistic about, right? He's a civil engineer who has the ability to kind of run this trial. And if someone did, if it had a couple of champions, it could really make some change when it comes to where plastics go end of life.
Yeah, and I saw it as promising for sure, because I think when I looked at this, it does address some of the cost issues that often, you're right, there's a lot of solutions that come up and they say there's no, until it scales.
Yeah.
But they have proven it out with some testing that it does extend the life of these roads that are, by several years, they said, so that aren't cracking under that heat, which is, by the way, getting worse and worse every year. And then not to mention, if your municipal services provide recycling centers, I mean, that's also cost out of there if you're not processing all of that extra plastic. So if communities are willing to look at the numbers on this, they may be persuaded. And it's going to take a couple communities probably that take the leap. But but I do think this could work.
I think it could work. And I think you also communities need to be willing to not be as short-sighted. And we need to get past this, like, what have you done for me lately mentality, in terms of like, hey, we're going to do this. It's going to be expensive. Well, more expensive. But like, we need to look at the long-term ROI, even though you'll likely have voted me out of office as a result of the spending. It's, I don't know. I don't want to seem too jaded in it, but I'm like, man, what a great idea. Can anyone try it? Can we just get like a small town with like 2 roads? Let them try it. But I don't know. I was glad that you picked the story, because this is a piece that we pulled from The Conversation, which, pulls like sort of longer form technical pieces from academia. And it was, you beat me to the punch on this one. So since you beat me to the punch,
David, there's no way you weren't picking this next story.
That's not true. That's not true.
I don't
There's
believe that.
No, that's not true. I mean, no one knew. But, I always like the innovative cross-section of technology in the medical industry. So, have you heard about smart underwear and what it could do to help treat intestinal health issues? Because if not, I'm going to tell you. So, researchers at the University of Maryland have created the first wearable device designed to measure human flatulence. By tracking hydrogen in flatus, that, I learned, is the medical term for intestinal gas. Flatus. Yes. And my life was never the same after learning about flatus. The device helps scientists revisit long-standing assumptions about how often people actually pass gas. For decades, physicians have struggled to help patients with problems with internal gas. And gastroenterologist Michael Levitt, who is known in the industry, and I swear to God he is known in the medical community as the king of farts.
All right.
He wrote, quote, "It is virtually impossible for the physician to objectively document the existence of excessive gas using currently available tests. So this tiny wearable snaps directly onto any underwear and uses electrochemical sensors to track intestinal gas production around the clock." Now, I didn't just choose this story because of the subject matter and the fact that you cannot get through the story without giggling at least 7 times. But this study was published in Biosensors and Bioelectronics, and it found that healthy adults produce flatus an average of 32 times per day. Now, the reason that's wild is because the medically accepted norm before this was 14. Just because they really had no good way of getting a handle. People are self-reporting this information, and that's the best they could do. Or there were these very invasive small sample size tests that were being performed. They also found out that individual variation is extreme. The daily totals range from 4 events, let's call them, to 59. And it's just this entire study really kind of, there are some things that you think you really got a handle on in the medical community, and just internal gas is not one of them. And this could lead to they kind of compared it to a glucose monitor, where this is something that you could actually wear and it would manage your gut health. And I know that a lot of people deal with intestinal issues, all kinds of things like in terms of gut health. And I thought this was pretty cool. And now the other thing is that they're also going to take this information. Anna, you're holding it together really well. I really appreciate it. Just the smirk's coming though. No, so they're also going to build the Human Flatus Atlas project to map this normal range of flatulence. So basically, we have this baseline, like I said, for almost everything in the medical field. And this project is going to use smart underwear to objectively measure these patterns day and night across hundreds of participants and correlate those patterns with diet and microbiome composition. And they're still looking for participants. So what an opportunity to get on board with early access to this Human Flatus Atlas project. And I don't know if you had a chance to check this out. It was quite popular in the office when this news broke. But I do think that this is sort of an underserved part of the medical community that, we always talk about gut health without really having a strong understanding as to what's going on.
Yeah, I guess I wish I knew more about how fart counting gave you that information. I
didn't want to get but as part of this Atlas project, they're going to track people based on what their diets are and other factors in their life. And I didn't want to get into so there were, some of the issue, how do they label them? They're labeled as, are you a Zen digester or a hydrogen hyperproducer? And so they basically have these different categories that they're going to follow and look for correlations.
I see. Okay. I liked that the previous research struggled with tracking missed events. That was my favorite part.
Yes.
Missed events.
Well, it's like it's like when I don't know how you could ask someone to self-report. Just like, I don't know, during the day I slept for 10 hours. Can't really tell you. But no, it's and also this is not something that you would think we needed more advancements in, right?
Yeah. Fart counting is an imperfect science until now.
When the kids are looking for things they could be, at some point the king of farts will have to give up his throne.
Yep.
And there's going to be a vacancy. Jeff, your thoughts on this article?
I think it's all been stated, David.
It is. It's all out there.
It's positive. This is a very sensitive thing. When you do have these issues, people aren't really, even with their doctor, I think, probably not as forthcoming with the symptoms and
Fair
things
enough.
that they're experiencing. So having some sort of science there that gives you some real data to work with and getting at the problem, extremely helpful. I'm surprised there aren't more people actually who aren't participating in this, that they're still looking for people to help them out.
It's brand new, Jeff. Brand new. Still looking for participants. I'd like to see a little bit more as to the size, because it's supposed to be a very non-intrusive, discreet. It's not just gonna be like, why are you wearing a beeper? Oh, let me tell you. But no, I think I don't know. All joking aside, and we've really worked hard, but I think this is incredible and could really be another thing, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely.
That could lead to something.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, before we get out of here this week, let's do our final thoughts. Anna, what's your final thought this week?
Over the last couple of weeks, my youngest daughter has determined that she really wanted to purchase a Labubu with her own money.
Oh, man.
But she didn't have enough, so she asked if she could pick up a part-time job.
Okay.
She's 8. So she opened up a cafe in our house and has been serving us food.
Yeah.
And she'll take our orders and then make the food and then clean up afterwards and serve it to us. And then she works for tips, and it is the best thing ever.
Right.
And so she earned enough and she ordered her Labubu. And just now during the podcast, I got a text.
Oh, it's there?
And the box had arrived. And so she was asking if she could open it. My dad texted me. And so she got it.
Yeah.
And she's
Man.
I know. It was very exciting. So I don't know if the cafe closes down now. Do I still can I still go there?
Do you have to make your own toast? Man.
I'm not, yeah.
If you're excited about
that.
one Labubu, think of how excited you would be if you had 2.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
It's honestly when you're able to teach your kids the value of a hard day's work, and then they actually see the outcome, it's really incredible.
I agree totally. It was fun to like encourage her to do that, and she really took to it and had a lot of fun anyway. So
Man.
yeah.
So I mean, she was like a maid barista.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she
Fantastic.
made me sandwiches and stuff. I mean, yeah.
That is
She would bring me coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. We had something similar where Mama wasn't feeling good, and kind of like unprovoked, the kids put together a basket of snacks as to what she might want. And I'm just like, that is so considerate. I'm like, I don't know how to reward you other than praise. And should we buy you things? Let's buy you things. No. I just say it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
My final thought this week is that, I was out last week because I was on the road in Anaheim. And as I alluded to earlier, the Medical Design and Manufacturing West show, and there's a number of co-located shows there, was healthy, and it was a great time. Really appreciate everybody. A lot of people had really good things to say about the podcast throughout the industry, and just really appreciated that feedback. But, the last couple of times, like I said, I've been to trade shows, and it's just like, it's open, right? And they're just like, no, they're sending more qualified people. And I'm like, well, they got to be walking around somewhere. And this was one where there was like the legitimate rush when the door opened and like foot traffic was healthy. Sometimes you stop at people's booths and you're just like, I'll come back because, I'm going to write a story, but they're going to buy 100,000 of something. So I just wanted to quick highlight a couple of people that I stopped by that I thought were doing really cool things. And I'll have a follow-up report on this that you can check out at IN.com. But the first place I stopped at was Active Power. And the reason I stopped at Active Power was because as I was walking from my hotel to the convention center, my notebook fell out of my portfolio. And so basically, as I was walking to my first appointment, I was looking for any booth that had a notepad.
Yeah.
And Active Power had one. And I went to grab the notepad, and I was just like, what do you do? Just like, not just trying to make it transactional. And it turned out that they do something really cool. They actually make gap protection for power outages. And I didn't really think about it, but basically, we cover Generac and generators all the time. But when power goes out, there is this gap before the generator turns on, and their technology basically bridges that gap. And it was kind of really cool. And it's very popular in the medical industry, obviously, if you're doing a medical procedure and all of a sudden you lose power. But it's huge in automotive because they gave this example of when they're painting cars and all of a sudden the power goes out in the plant and everything's either got to be repainted or scrapped. And it was wild. So I thought that was really cool. Cosina had what they were calling the candy store for engineers. Basically, they have a vending machine that is stocked with thousands of their components for rapid prototyping and exploration. And I thought that was really cool. It was very popular at the show. DuPont, and I wanted to call them out because they just have a new material. And of course, it's got a material name. It's the Livio CX or C6-8XX series of liquid silicone rubber. But when I was meeting with them, it was really cool because it's made for faster and more consistent molding changes, less fouling, less changeovers, less cleanouts, less short shots, better flow with less pressure. And it could lead to real lights out manufacturing for medical device manufacturers. And that was just something that I wasn't expecting when I was like, new material, huh? What is it? And it was kind of cool because having worked with injection molding before, like when they were talking about short shots and stuff, I was speaking their language. Sonotech has a really cool non-invasive flow and bubble sensor for medical devices. And again, it just looks like this little cube that clips onto tubes, but it works for heart and lung machines, making sure that, you don't have bubbles in them because that's bad. And it makes sure that they're flowing in the right direction. And I was like, is that something that happens a lot where you need to make sure they're not flowing? He just kind of gave me that look like, I'm like, okay, all right. And then the other one that really stood out was CPC, and they kind of make connectors for everything. We know them that they're the old Colder products. Connectors for everything from defibrillators to motors to ketchup and ice cream dispensers. And that one kind of stood out to me because we've been making connectors since the beginning of machines, since things have connected, and it's still not possible to disconnect things and reconnect them without a little bit of spillage, which at the medical show, you don't want. And it's also going to be huge in the printing industry. So it was just really cool. They're doing a lot of work in data centers as well. And it was just a few that kind of stood out to me and kind of surprised me a little bit. But it was a great show. So thank you again, Andy, to stepping in for me. But more to come with trade show coverage. Jeff, final thought.
I'm just going to work on getting you some washcloths to keep in your vehicle so you can wipe off that camera.
I have wipes and napkins, man. I just don't want to get out.
Do you want me to show you how to use it? Or?
No, I don't want to use it.
Okay.
Every time I get gas, I wipe out the
Okay,
wall.
just want to make sure you're okay with it.
Yeah, but if it did it itself, I wouldn't hit him.
I got you. Nope, I had a great weekend trip last week. I've been a little bit slower motion this week because it was a great trip. So no closing thought, but I'll try to help you, David, with less reliance on some of this technology, showing you that you can still do stuff.
I love being like not relying on, we split a bunch of wood this weekend by hand. Fantastic. No better way to do it.
There you go.
But I don't have to split it while I'm driving on the interstate. No.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
Well, hopefully you continue to rest up and recover and now reach at full strength. All right, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Just give us a thumbs up if you're on YouTube right now. Man, that algorithm changes all the time. If you want to email any of us, you can reach us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IAN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. For Jeff Reinke and Anna Wells, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we will see you next week.